Welcome to Lab 10 for Busy 100 MIS class. In this lab, I need to give you all a quick background and introduction to project planning and specifically Microsoft Project. And the reason behind that is this particular tool, Microsoft Project, is something that you're going to use probably quite a bit in your careers. A lot of different industries will use this to do basic project planning. And it's similar to Microsoft Excel in that you can use it for any kind of project plan. But before getting into exactly how the tool works, I need to give you a background about project planning in general. And so with that, I'm going to start out with a famous quote. Uh, by the end of the decade, we will land a man on the moon. And this quote was made by, give you all a second to think about it, John F. Kennedy, and it was made in, I believe, in his inaugural address in 1961. So the goal, or with any project that we want to tackle, we have to have a very specific goal and time frame. So we have a time frame listed here. By the end of the decade, we will land a man on the moon. And so here's our goal, our main objective. And of course, at this time in the early 1960s, we weren't talking about landing a woman on the moon or a chimpanzee. It was a man on the moon. So it's a very specific goal. And then a very important part about the quote is Kennedy completed it by saying, and return him safely to Earth. Something like that. May not be exact. But what this references here is a quality aspect of the project. So any project that we engage in will basically have these three components: the time frame, the goal, or what we're trying to accomplish, and who is going to be involved, what are the resources, and then the quality aspect. When we put together a project, again, we start out with this high level goal. Obviously, we can't just move from there to implementation and have somebody on the moon. We have to break down the work into smaller and smaller components. So in this example here, let's say I want to build a home. I want to break that down into specific steps for building the house. And let's assume that we're going to go build a custom home on some new land. So the first thing that we might do is we need to look at designing the home, and then we break that down into research different plans, different styles. We hire a contractor, and there might be a lot more detail underneath that. Then we need to go out and find out where we want to build this particular home. So we might hire a real estate agent, search for land, um, acquire building contracts, and so forth. So again, what we would do is break this down into smaller and smaller components. Then we construct the house and so on. When it gets down to a particular level of detail, we would assign these individual tasks to people and then be able to track the progress over time on how well that particular person is doing the task or how they are not doing the task. And then we can take corrective actions as needed. And so again, any project that we create, and this can, as you can see, we've looked at building a house or NASA putting somebody on the moon. The project can be anything, but we're going to go through the same methodology. Now, what we're looking at here again, we've seen the scope of the project. In this case, all these different activities. Um, and we might have a particular time frame. So if we build a house, if it's a tract home built outside the Stockton area, the suburbs, it might typically take us about 6 to 9 months to build that home. The quality will be so-so or average, and there'll be a fixed number of resources that we can apply to the project. If we build a custom home somewhere, then the time and the quality we expect to go up, possibly the resources as well. And so what we get into is a balancing act. If you have ever watched the Extreme Makeover Home Edition shows, what they're doing is compressing the time aspect, trying to keep the quality the same, but they're really increasing the resources. So in other words, they're maximizing their resources that are involved by minimizing the time. But I have to balance all of these things out. So as I can increase the time by not applying as many resources, so it might get done cheaper. Um, or possibly if I want to keep uh, the time longer or whatever, I can reduce the quality aspect. So whenever I change one of the three dimensions of my planning triangle, it affects or impacts the other two areas. Now for the lab, what we're going to do is take a look back from chapter 12, the systems development life cycle. And if you remember from this slide in chapter 12, we looked at the process of building software, and it starts with feasibility planning and determining how much the project is going to cost. Then we move into systems analysis where we design, where we determine the requirements and what needs to get built. Then move kind of hand over the project to the MIS team, and they design the system, and then they implement the system. So in the next step of the lab, we'll look at the details of how this is done within Microsoft Project.